Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is it. This is the big one. Manchester United hosted Ipswich in the Premier League. Joe is here. It's the preview. Joe, right. We've got a thing above my head that says 6-pointer.
Yeah.
Now,
disappointing to read, I'll be honest.
If we're going to be brutally honest,
thought we'd be here.
Right. We're, 13 points, I think, at the time of recording this, from safety, yeah? It's probably not a 6-pointer, but we're not that far off Ipswich, are we? We're not like a million miles away. We're actually like two spaces above, 2 places above them, which is a bit of a shambles.
Yeah, we bookend a bookshelf that consists of West Ham and Wolves. It's hardly the British Library, is it, between us and Ipswich? Like, obviously the points, the 13 points, they're not going to overcome that. I can't imagine that. They would have to basically almost double their current points total just to bridge the gap to us if we lost every game. Yeah. Which I know we've lost 5 of our last 6 at Old Trafford, but even that 1 in 6 is enough to keep Ipswich away from us. So we're not going down, but it is shocking and a little bit disgusting that we are only a West Ham and Wolves away from being basically level with Ipswich. Like, that is a real worry. And obviously we all know that this season's been an utter disaster. It's not a 6-pointer, but it is a bottom 6 teams clash. Like, you know, in other seasons, all of those teams would be in a relegation fight. We're almost helped by the fact that Southampton are literally on for a record low points tally, and Leicester and Ipswich have basically decided to relegate themselves from the start of the season. I know they've picked up more points here and there, but they're on 17 points from 26 games. They've had disasters, almost to the magnitude of United's disaster when you compare the scale of the clubs. But luckily for us, we're not going to get relegated. But it is just absolutely astonishing that we are where we are. And, you know, like I said before, 5 losses in our last 6 home games. That's home games. That's where you're meant to be better. I saw a stat today that since, other than the COVID season, for some reason across the Premier League, the home advantage in terms of goals scored and points accrued is the smallest it's been in like 30 years. For some reason, home teams are struggling generally this season, but United are the perfect example of that, with just awful form. So yeah, it's not a 6-pointer, but it's far worse and far closer than I ever hoped it would be.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine when Ruben Amorim came in that first game against Ipswich. By the time the second game came around, would be even joking about this being a relegation 6-pointer. And you mentioned the home games. The most disappointing aspects of that run for me has been the teams we've played. Yeah. Had we played Arsenal, Liverpool, City, and I don't know, I was going to say Forest, but we did. During that time, you might go, okay, but we've played teams that, with all due respect, are beatable. Bournemouth, Palace, Brighton, Forest obviously did beat us, and you know, the win was against Southampton, and we were played off the park for an hour against a team that's on course to be the worst Premier League team in history. Yeah. So it's been so deflating, so annoying, and I do sympathise with Ruben Amorim, because I think, yes, the manager has to take some responsibility, but ultimately the players have got to step up a lot more. There's no excuses for losing the amount of games we have at home, and it makes every game at home now, you're in that sort of vein where you're in that mindset where you think, well, anything could happen. You can't just go, well, it's only Ipswich, because it was only all the teams I've mentioned, and that, you know, many of them probably looked easily very beatable, but they weren't. No. A big issue, and one of the reasons why we're struggling so much, whether that's at Old Trafford or even away from home, this season has been a lack of goals. United don't have a striker who is capable of getting almost any goals at the minute. I mean, the record for our strikers is just astounding. It really is. Yeah. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it since my time, you know, supporting United, going back to as long as I can remember, where we've had 2 strikers, if you can class it as a striker, who just don't seem to know where the net is.
Yeah, I think between them, there's been 24 games worth of time played without a goal. So I think it's 13 games for Xerxes and 11 for Højlund in the Premier League without either of them scoring, which is just hideous, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's utterly horrific. You know, I know they've played in the same games there, but those time where for both of them individually put together, you're looking at 2/3 of a season without a single goal there.
You mean you want your attackers to dovetail, don't you?
Yeah.
So you remember, like, go back to the if you can cast your mind back, Joe.
Okay, go on.
I want you to close your eyes and think of 2012, 2013.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
Certain Robin van Persie, arrives at Old Trafford and Fergie says, gets everyone together in the dressing room. He says, look, your job now, give him the ball, he'll get you the goals.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I think it was around February, March, Van Persie just stopped scoring all of a sudden. He went, I think it was 10 games in all competitions where he didn't score. And do you know what happened? Wayne Rooney stepped up.
Yeah.
And we just kept winning. It didn't matter. Go back to the early years where you'd have York and Cole or Ollie or Sheringham. Someone was always scoring. Now you've got two strikers where neither of them are. Now, the one saving grace at the minute is Xerxes. He looks decent on the ball. He's playing quite well, but he's not scoring.
Can I open my eyes yet?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
But if you want to, you might want to keep him close for the next 5 months.
6 months, yeah.
Whereas Højlund has just his form, his confidence, everything about him seems to have just fallen off a cliff.
It is awful. It's genuinely awful. And looking at the bigger picture as well, it's 3 and 26 in the league for Xerxes and 2 and 21 for Højlund. So it's not as though it's just these last 13 games. There's never been a flurry of goals. There's never been a consistent run at all for either of them. The only consistency between them in terms of goals is that I think 5 in 8 group games that Højlund got in the Europa. That's the only even sort of fragment of consistency we've seen all season. But I mean, I do obviously, we have to blame them individually as well. But I don't just blame them. United scored 58 goals last season. Xerxes wasn't here for that. That wasn't his fault. Yeah. United scored 50 or 56 goals last season, 58 the season before. Xerxes wasn't here for that. Like, Højlund wasn't here for that. So the fact that the numbers are, to be fair, even worse this season, I will give you. But that's because one of the people in that season got 30 goals in Marcus Rashford. He's completely stopped scoring and then now literally can't score again for Man United this season. Another one that was crucial in that was Bruno Fernandes, who again isn't really putting up the same numbers that he has done over the last couple of seasons. And also, I think in one of those seasons we had Cristiano Ronaldo playing for us. So even with him playing, we didn't get many goals. Now you swap out Ronaldo and Rashford for Højlund and Xerxes. We know there's a quality drop there, but it's not just their fault because we should have scored more goals in those previous seasons that I mentioned, but we can't because the creativity isn't there. I know I feel like a broken record. Our fullbacks, and I'm not going to include Dorgu in this because he's been here for 3 games, but let's look at the fullbacks we've had for most of these 11 and 13 games respectively, and all season. They get no goals and assists at all between them. Like 0. I think, Dallow's got 1 or 2 goals this season and 1 or 2 assists, which is worse than Wan-Bissaka, who we sold because he isn't good enough going forward. I think the same can be said for Mazraoui on the other side. I know Ahmad's played there and been more successful, but he's out for the season now as well. Like, the midfield doesn't offer anything creatively. The other striker doesn't. So Højlund is never looking for Xerxes. He's never really going to get assists for Xerxes. Xerxes maybe can do that, but even then, he's not getting assists. So his touch and stuff is all right, but it's not amounting to goals for Manchester United. It's just, nice little bits here and there, which is something to cling on to at least. But we just don't create chances. And regardless of who's up front for us at the minute, unless you put someone who can do it all themselves, like a Mbappe or maybe a Salah at United, who can just get the ball 30 yards out, go past a couple and stick it in, no one's going to score loads of goals. So it's a much bigger structural issue, which is why I have so much sympathy for Højlund, why I have so much sympathy for Xerxes, and why I already have future sympathy for Chido Obi, because he's just going to get stuck in the same situation where unless you're, manufacturing it yourself from 25 yards out and smacking it from the edge of the box with basically a 3% chance of scoring, you're not going to even get any shots in a game, let alone goals. So I just feel completely sorry for the strikers. If you put Højlund or Xerxes or Chido Obi or Rashford, whoever you want, up front for Real Madrid or Liverpool or Man City, even, I know they've dropped off, but you put them up front for them, they'd get far more goals than they do in this United side. All of them would. So it's just a crap situation, and hopefully, especially in the case of Højlund and Chido, who I do think have got good goal scoring potential, we don't completely crush them and ruin them before we manage to build a team around whichever striker it is that can actually create chances for them. That's my biggest concern, is that their United careers are finished before they even have a chance. Yeah,
I think Højlund is getting a massive worry. Obviously Chido's not started yet, but Højlund, I see him at the games, he just looks like his confidence is gone. Also, there's an issue with him, Garnacho. I can't ignore it. They just don't get on.
No.
With all that being said, on this cheery note, let's get to the predicted 11s. I know it's all right, you're being honest. Let's go through your 11 there. Yeah. So talk us through it.
I've got Chido up front. I think the back.
That's the big talking point. Let's start with that.
The back eight is kind of. There's only 2 or 3 permutations you can have there. Maybe you want Maguire, maybe you want Euro, maybe you want, but we get all that. I think let's give Chido a chance. And this is back to my previous point, not because I think Højlund is beyond repair, but I do think that he probably needs a minute. Like, his confidence is obviously fucked, to for lack of a better word. And let's give Chido a chance. He might just get it from 18 yards and smack it in the bottom corner. I know he's an excellent finisher. And also I've put Eriksen in there and Xerxes. It completely lacks pace and penetration. I appreciate that, but I think Garnacho is still best off the bench. I still believe that. And also we don't have many other options. There's no Mainu, there's no Ahmad. I think Bruno next to Ugarte, because Casemiro looks like he might well be done. I would go with that under the sort of proviso that we're struggling to press anyway. So the fact that Eriksen and Xerxes, who can't really press very well, are both playing, I would almost still play the same system and still ask for the same intensity, but maybe accept that we're not going to win the ball back as high up the pitch and maybe drop it a little bit, maybe into a kind of a mid-block and try and break from there. But it's a tough one, isn't it? We're at home, hopefully we'll have more possession, and the fact that Xerxes and Eriksen aren't as athletic and aren't as quick will be sort of overcome by the fact that we're going to have the ball further up the pitch for more of the game, and we can play in those tight spaces and get Obi some chances that way. But yeah, we don't have a lot to choose from, and I think let's give Chido a start.
Yeah, well, it's debatable whether the manager will do that. Obviously, This is a predictable one. You think he will. I get your thinking. I get it. I think that when you look at what's going on with Højlund, also the crowd are getting on him a little bit as well. And I think you bring in a youngster, the crowd just rallies behind them. It might not last forever, but certainly on the debut or the full, the first start, I should say, for Manchester United, you'd expect the crowd to be well behind Chido Obi if he does make that start. My team isn't that dissimilar. I've just got Rasmus Højlund there. Yeah. The reason I'll explain it to you. I get everything you've said. I don't disagree with you. There's 2 things. I just feel that it's. I'm sort of like 51-49 that he's going to go with Højlund. Yeah. I just feel that he might feel like dropping Højlund now. It wasn't that long ago he dropped him for Kobbie Mainu as a striker. Dropping him again for a 17-year-old who's played about 20 minutes. Yeah. It might be just getting rid of any confidence he's got left. So he might just say, look, I'll start him, but if the game's getting away from him, then I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and bring him off if he's not contributing. So I feel that he might sort of err on the side of caution. The reason I've not got Garnacho in there is I think Garnacho and Højlund just can't play together. And I know people might think I'm being melodramatic, and they might prove me wrong, and I hope they do. But them two just don't seem on the same page at all. And also, just as one added aside, it would be nice to have someone on the bench who's hit puberty. Like, you don't want just kids. Yeah. Like, you want somewhere you can go, okay, we've got someone who's capable of getting a goal, causing the opposition a problem, and has played a lot of games in the Premier League, which Garnacho has. So there's 2 reasons there why I think he'll go with Alejandro Garnacho, but I agree with everything you've said. And the rest of the team, I went with Euro. I thought Maguire looked a bit off it at Goodison. And I think that Lenny Euro he's looked more good than bad since he's come into the United side, and he's obviously still learning. So that's what I'm thinking. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let us know what you think of those predicted 11s. Also, film yourself in landscape.
We've had
like
a lot
that.
Recently.
We have. Sorry to say that around like that. 30 seconds in landscape. Give us your score prediction. Send it to paddockmatchday@gmail.com. We'll use that as part of our build-up, pre-match build-up on the watch-along. And if we like what we see, you might end up coming on the show, coming on the channel. We've had Tyler come in a couple of times. She was sending us score predictions. We got her to jump on a couple of previews as well. So that could be you if you fancy that. Let's talk about Ipswich. Yeah. Because Ipswich are having one. They have. I was chatting to Roscoe from an Ipswich podcast earlier, and they're in a bad bit of form as well. I think the point at Villa was a big one because I think they went down to 10 men, and Villa are obviously doing quite well. But other than that, I think they lost at home to Southampton, which is a horrible
that was a killer. That
that's
an absolute killer.
Like, that's a game you should be winning, and you've got to win. Really.
If they get those 3 points, they're on 20 points, and they're only 2 points from safety. Yeah. Now they're 5 points from safety, and you've lost to the worst team ever at home.
That's it. Yeah. Psychologically, that's got to be devastating. Yeah. Also, as well, for some of the other games, like when you're playing someone like a Man City, you don't want to get battered. When you're playing a Liverpool or a Spurs, even, you don't want to just get pretty much battered. I know they were in those games, but they're not that close, are they? 2 4-1 defeats and a 6-0.
No,
that's not great. And I do feel for Kieran McKenna, he's obviously working on a shoestring. Has had a lot of games as well. He's done that whole thing that a few teams did it. Luton did it last season, where not the games we've mentioned, but a lot of games where it's been close, but they've lost. And they've had a few of them, but more recently they've had a few games where it ain't been close.
Yeah, it feels like they've lost a little bit of optimism, I think, Ipswich. And I know they've spent since they got in the Premier League, but they've basically got to the Premier League with a kind of League One team. This year was always going to be incredibly difficult for them. Back-to-back promotions. Like, you almost don't get time to catch up and push again to where you need to be. You'll even hear people in the Championship at times, and maybe this is a little bit of them trying to sort of handle the fact that they're not doing it as well as they want, but you'll hear fans of teams saying, we're not ready for the playoffs yet. We're not ready to get promoted yet because the squad will just come straight back down. They're like the epitome of that. They got back-to-back promotions with a team that was probably too good for League One, but not good enough for the Premier League.
No.
And to be fair, the fact that they're still putting up a fight, and if they have a good end of the season, they'll stay up.
Yeah.
You know, it's well within their reach to do that. They just have to have a bit of a turn in form. And you know what? I'm sure we're about to get to the score predictions. It wouldn't shock me if this was that turn, because United are so bad at home, and you know, Ipswich at least will put up a bit of fight. You know, and I worry that that's going to be enough to kind of take some points off us at least. Obviously, Delap's probably their main guy. He looked good against Tottenham, or dangerous against Tottenham as well the other day. Wasn't enough to get the win, obviously, but he's someone United have been linked with who is a decent player. But yeah, they've got some injuries as well. Phillips and Cisso's out, but you know, we're just awful. So we'll see.
Right, so if my maths are right, has Delap got more than double the amount of Premier League goals that Højlund and Xerxes have got put together? It rhymes with clucking bell. With all that being said then, and let's not forget Axel
smell?
Yeah, that's the one. Axel Tuanzebe returns as well. That's the stars are lining up, aren't they?
Yeah.
After his suspension for the sending off against Villa. Give us your score prediction.
Honestly, I think we'll draw. I don't think we're going to win again. I think we're just absolutely crap, and I think the players are doing as little as they possibly can to not get sort of sacked on the spot, especially in the league. I think they'll try and look all right, but if Ipswich actually put it on us, we'll struggle. Although actually, they're starting to lose a little bit of belief, and they've only won 2 games away all season. So I'm going to change it as I'm speaking. I'm going to go 2-1 United. But I think if Ipswich push us and press us and actually work hard, they'll beat us.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Like, Rangers noticed during the game, we're crap. Like, not their crap, the United are crap, and they grew into it. And we were lucky to get a result there. It could have gone either way. Southampton, for the first hour, dominated the game, basically. If teams like go for it at Old Trafford, I know they were both Rangers and Southampton lost, but they gave us a game. And then you've had other teams like Palace who just won. Like, they can get a result, and this is the thing. If Ipswich comes to Old Trafford and think, this is Manchester United, I don't know what we're going to do, we're going to struggle, then that might play in our hands. But if they come and get at us, then they'll be pleasantly surprised. I think we'll draw. I think it'll be the same scoreline it was at Portman Road. I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah,
I think Delap's got a goal in him, and maybe Bruno gets an equaliser or gets a goal for us, whichever way around it goes. I can't be bothered working that one out. Joe, always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you for that. You're going to be doing a watch along, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, got loads of us on. It's me, Scotty Ronaldo, and Nathan Ellington as well. So
the dream team.
Packed house for what could be one of the worst games of our lives. Cheers.
Has Nathan Ellington got more Premier League goals than our strike force? He probably has.
He has this season, and he's done his fucking Achilles in October.
Go and check Joe out, the Sloppy Joes podcast. You know where to find me. That's been Joe. I've been Jay. This has been a preview. Manchester United versus Ipswich. Thanks for watching.